We're doing a interactive design blog panel, and we have 5 of the industry's best and top professionals to speak on the subject. So we have quite a diverse group of individuals who cover a variety of topics. So Susan, what made you actually choose the industry of kitchen as your design beat?
Well, for me personally, for kitchens, I liked the two sides of one side creative and one side analytical, in terms of working to the 1/8 of an inch, which I've done now for 20 years, and that's not as wonderful, exciting as it used to be, but it is. It's pressure, let me tell you. But I do like the analytical and the creative together, and that is what you get with being a professional kitchen designer. So there's always something interesting.
Great. So ERIKA, you have a successful interior design company. Why start a blog? I know you mentioned a little bit.
Well, I think for me, I needed a creative outlet for myself. So much of my day was about my clients, and I was sort of getting burnt out on working on other projects and not being able to have a creative outlet of my own, which is where it started. And I feel like my blog has sort of changed, because then the more readers I got, the more intimidated I got with just sharing what I liked. So you sort of have to appeal to both. Mm-hmm. So that was it.
And then in turn, what impact have you seen on your business since you've started your blog?
A huge impact, honestly. Most of my work probably 6 years ago was all local, and now there's been a huge shift. Probably 80% of my work is out of town, and only 20% is local at the beach where I am. And it's all comes from the blog.
Right. And then you've seen an increase in customers, but also an increase in just your brand awareness as well?
Yes, both.
Great. So Chris, so you have this blog. Now what? You as a sales and marketing expert, any business tips for business owners that have transferred their business to a blog and now want to kind of promote that and cross-promote it through?
Sure. Well, I think apartment therapy sort of thrives on big, beautiful pictures. And our team loves helping individuals and help our readers learn about new stores. But it's very important to have good pictures and very clear information. And maybe this is kind of a weird tip, but a lot of people don't like generic email addresses or just sending something into forms. And I can promise that there's 15 of us every day reading all of the emails and all of the forms. So really stay at it and send things into the forums. And we're very excited to hear from as many designers and stores as we can. And also at Apartment Therapy, we have a new section of our site called the Marketplace, where stores and designers can claim their pages. And then you have your own little section of Apartment Therapy where you can update on your own and share sales and events directly that way, even if not everything maybe get editorial coverage.
Great. So if for the people that are looking to start blogs, you would recommend keeping up on comments that you have on the blog, keeping up on forms filled out. Do you have any tools or resources if I have a blog, now I'm trying to market it to my customers, what would be my next step for that?
I think the trick with blogging maybe is to be consistent and to be passionate. Mm-hmm. So it has to really be about something that you care about. And then you have to really stay at it and find your regular rhythm, if it's once a week or once a day, and then write from a place of passion. And some days it can feel like, I don't know what to say. But the longer you keep at it and really know your niche, like I think maybe Susan's Scandinavian Kitchens is a great example, because it's a niche thing that you're very passionate about. Mm-hmm. So then just when you think you've said everything about a topic, you can suddenly find a way to go even deeper. And readers appreciate, there's lots of mass vehicles, and I think a blog is a niche place to really gather a very qualified, passionate group of people.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, Susan, do you want to speak a little bit about the differences between your two blogs, and maybe if you have any tips for, you know, the first beginning blogger, how to kind of market it a little bit, maybe reach out to some of your customers, show them the blog in hopes that that will generate new customers?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, a blog can do different things, and you can have different goals. You can have several goals for your blog. For example, if my original goal was that I started a blog because I wanted to reach my region, my territory, and from what the little information I knew, blogs come up better in search than websites. This is back in late 2006, so I thought, okay, I'll start a blog, and plus I have so much to share, and it was a natural to me. I like to write. So in answer to your question, if you want to get recognition from your surrounding area, one little secret is your blog titles. If, for example, I live on Long Island, and early on in my blogging, I put on as a title, Long Island Kitchen Designer. Well, today, 3 years later, you put in Long Island Kitchen Designer, and I'm pretty much #1 on the list. So it's focusing your, thinking a little bit in terms of search, just a little bit in terms of what you're posting, and particularly titles are very, very powerful, I'll tell you that. They're extremely powerful in search. And there's always the question of, well, do you do something catchy or do you do something? My titles are the most boring titles you'll ever see, and I think that's why my blog does so well. But I also have done a model, business model, which I have now dismantled because I don't have time for it, of a PayPal hourly consulting. And I had that for several years, and it got me people from all over the country, and I would do it via PayPal, and they would pay me $200 an hour, and then they would send me their things, and they would be an hour phone call of therapy, kitchen therapy, and it was very successful, and I loved it, and they loved it, and then eventually I didn't have time for it. But the point is, that's another model to pick up some money, which then, in my case, led to kitchens, doing some kitchens. Oh, well, then will you do a design for me? And, oh, okay, now I'd like to order the kitchen, you know, so I think it's good to be creative about there are multiple opportunities.
Great, yeah. I think tips on keeping your blog CEO or SEO friendly is also important to kind of keep in mind too. So Megan, in addition to Beach Bungalow 8, you mentioned that you're a contributor to the Skirted Roundtable. Yep. And how would someone who is doing a blog then kind of transition into maybe carrying it over to a weekly radio show? How did you do that?
Well, how I did it, Linda Merrill is the person who came up with the idea. Linda has a great blog called Surroundings, and she's been blogging for probably 6 or 7 years now. And she came to a good friend of mine named Joni Webb, who has Coat to Texas, some of you might know of. And Joni said, let's get Megan on, because we're all three so different in our design aesthetic and our lifestyles and where we are in life, et cetera. So for that very reason, I think is why it works. We're just, the three of us could not be more opposite, so we get along perfectly well. And it's fun because we each come from such a funny place, funny in a different place. When we interview people, we have questions that are from 3 different fields completely. But anyone could probably do what we've done and what Linda has done, really. It started out, we do it on Skype, so it's very lo-fi. We do it audio Skype. We're all three. Linda's in Boston, I'm in LA, and Joni is in Texas. And we do it on Monday nights, and we started out just having it be a roundtable discussion with the three of us about different design trends or what we thought about it. Then we started bringing on our blogger friends, and I think the most pivotal show we did, we discussed Bunny Williams' Kips Bay cover show house. None of us liked it, and we also didn't think, we thought maybe we had 50 people listening to us, and Yeah, we ripped it. We ripped it to shreds. We, lowly designers that we are, totally ripped her Bunny Williams kits out. I mean, and it really caused a stir. And that was when we realized, oh my God, people are listening. Oh, we got to watch our P's and Q's here. But not only that, Stephen Drucker commented. And he at the time was the editor-in-chief. And we all called each other on the phone. We're like, do you think that's really Stephen Drucker who left the comment? And I said, well, I'm going to figure out, I'm going to get his cell phone number. And everyone's like, how are you going to do that? I'm going to track it down. I'm going to get a hold of his assistant or someone. Well, the following week, he was on our show. And then that just opened up. And we were like, who are we? What? He's going to be on our show? This is crazy. Well, that happened. And then Margaret Russell's right-hand man, Shaman, called me and said, Margaret needs to be on that show next week. And we're like, all right. And so it just kept going from there. And I think we have Bunny Williams is coming on soon. So this will be interesting. And she keeps mentioning, oh, I want to talk about that. We're a little embarrassed because the way we handled ourselves with that, we were very frank. But it's very easy, as I said. Anyone can get it. You can put it on iTunes. It's been a really great addition. I think there's tons of room out there for anybody who wants to start something like this, and it could be kitchen-centric. I mean, why not? An interview, you could go at from so many different angles. You just have to get an editing software program and I think that's about the biggest expense. But people really like to hear designers that they've seen their work in print. But they like to hear their voices, and there's something very intimate that I think we forget about, not having radio be such a main media in our lives. And there's something very intimate about hearing just a vocal conversation between people, and people feel more intimate, so they open up. So I think it's great. Anyone who wants to give it a try, let me know. I'm happy to help you with any of the tips that we've learned along the way.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah. I'm curious how much time you spend a week on Skirted Roundtable versus Beach Bungalow 8.
Okay, well, that's a good question. No, it really isn't that much. She asked me, if you didn't hear this, how much time I spend, because blogging, so Beach Bungalow 8 takes a ton of time. I mean, I don't know who's whipping up blog posts in 5 minutes flat, because you got to think about it all the time, and it takes a lot of time. So this is it's an hour. We ask of our guests 1 hour to come talk to us.
But do you talk beforehand? Do the three of you get together beforehand and?
Yeah. So usually, well, we don't usually have questions. We kind of let it go free flow. So we have kind of a setup where we have them come on. Linda asks them, give us your background, how you got to where you are now. And then we sort of start asking questions. We've had people on who I had no idea who they were, and I'd had a long day of dealing with kids and all this stuff. And so in those, I'm pretty silent. But once people start talking, if you're a talkative person, you kind of can come in on the conversation. But we have an hour with that person, and then afterward, the three of us usually, we've chatted up to 3 hours afterward, late into the night. There's so much. So the editing, Linda does all of the editing, and she has told me it depends. If we're all over the place with our conversation, it's really tough for her. So we try to stay in a linear way because that makes it easier. She edits out all the ahums, and a lot of times people get so comfortable that they say things they'd rather not be, and so we edit stuff out when they say, "Can you take that one part out where I talked about so and so?" But Linda's told me it takes her up to 4 hours to edit. I don't know if that's in one sitting, but it's a lot. That's a lot. So, if you could probably do it 5 hours a week if you have the time. But I think it's worth it. I mean, it's amazing the amount of hits. And like I said, I thought 50 people were listening to us, and I still don't ever realize how many. And I was at High Point a couple weeks ago, and I mentioned it to Jamie Drake, a big designer, and he laughed, put his hand on mine. He's like, "We all know Skirted Roundtable." I was like, "You do? That's so weird." I mean, now I'm like get nervous to think about it. But for such a small, a little bit of money to put into it, it's had great returns. So
great. So talking about another medium to use, Tim, you have quite a bit of expertise in social media, marketing your brand through social media. Charles and Hudson is on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. How do you determine and decide what social media channels you may want to promote either your brand or your blog through? What has been successful for you in that?
Well, for me, it's, a blog is a great place to, have the central core of what you're trying to do, have it run through your blog, but then do as much, if you're, I guess it depends on what your motivations are, and if your goal is to really reach as many people as you can, then you kind of need to be on as many channels as you can. And obviously it's not possible, but, and you might really gravitate to Facebook. If you really feel like you know Facebook, put your energies towards that. Twitter, go there, YouTube. But if you can try to be everywhere that your audience might be, that's more the reason why I do it.
And then do you do certain cross-promoting differently through different channels? Like, does Facebook differ for you than Twitter, or making a video for YouTube differ than Facebook?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I'll post on Facebook or Twitter that I'm not going to write a blog post about. And I'll share giveaways, I'll do those sorts of things on those mediums, which it's a little more accepted, whereas a blog post is something I want to remain more evergreen and have real value. So when I write that post, I want that to kind of have more value than just that day or just that week. Whereas if it's a Facebook update or something like that, it can just be more of a short term.
Great. Chris, anything to add? I know you actually have a personal Twitter account. How do you differ that from, Go Chris Go and Apartment Therapy?
I probably should have used Apartment Therapy's Twitter, which is a lesson for everyone here, I think, to differentiate what's your own personal social media from what your work social media is. And some people, maybe like Grace Bonney from Design Sponge, her life is her site in a different way, but I think Apartment Therapy's strategy is we really believe in the we and talk about it as a community. So I think that it's best really to make sure that all of your social streams collect in the way that supports your company's mission. So, and you should follow me at Apartment Therapy and hear what we're up to there.
Megan, you have something done?
I was just going to mention that's a really good point. If you have a larger company, you can have people tweeting for you, but a really good idea that I think I saw initially on Piperline, which is an online shoe store, their employees they tweet, but they each have a photograph on the website with their handle so that they're held responsible for what they say, because that's what a lot of businesses are like, well, I don't know that I want my 25-year-old intern, tweeting about something that we just got in, because I don't know if she's going to, reveal something she shouldn't. Or so what you do is you make sure you give them broad, outlines, but in case they do mess up, they're accountable because there's their face and it's under their name. So I think that's a good point to consider if you have a larger firm.
Susan, do you have anything to add in terms of social media?
Well, I would just say in the case of the blog, to be your authentic self. That's very important, and whatever your voice is, and sometimes your mood changes, and sometimes my mood changes, and that's okay. Sometimes I want to whine about something, or not too often. But to be your authentic self, I think, is critical, and that will show through. There's just no question it will show through, and people will like that. It will show through in Facebook and Twitter. I like humor a lot. I just like to laugh, and I can be a little bit sarcastic. So of course, you have to be careful of that. But just be your authentic self, and the rest will follow. That's what I would say.
So in terms of guest blogging, do you all have thoughts on guest blogging? Who you allowed to guest blog on your behalf? Any thoughts on that? Tim?
For me, starting out, it was really a great way to get my voice out there and my site. And, you know, and at this point too, I still do that for sites as large as mine, for sites that are smaller than mine. I still feel it's a great way to kind of to connect. And I also, it's an opportunity for me to build content for my site if somebody who has authority in their field or is an expert in their field wants to contribute, then most often I'm all for it. So, you know, that's something, if you're a designer right now and you're kind of getting your word, you're trying to kind of build your presence online, guest blogging, shooting an email to some of the blogs that you really admire and the people that you really have a connection with and that your content would make sense on their site, it's a good way to get out there. Yeah.
Great. Megan, did you have something to add about guest blogging? Okay.
Yeah, I actually guest blog. I have from time to time I have someone blog on my blog, but I'm also a guest blogger for Decorati, and then in a whole other demographic, I'm a blogger for Sears. So it's a whole different voice. I certainly have experience in my business over the years, so it's another opportunity for us people in the kitchen and bath industry to extend our reach a little bit and find another platform you feel comfortable with and contribute to.
Great. So, Megan, in terms of keeping your content fresh and new, you know, where do you look for inspiration? If it's other blogs, if it's other designers,
I try not to look at other blogs. In fact, when I come up with an idea for a post, often what I do is Google it to make sure that somebody within my little design genre hasn't already covered it. It happens, but you know, that's something I try to avoid. So I mean, I look everywhere. I look at a lot of European blogs. A lot of Swedish blogs have a lot of really fascinating, they just have a different aesthetic, so that's a great place to start. And then sometimes in their side panel will be things to click, you know, links to other blogs in France and in Germany. I tend to look at, so I do look at other blogs, but they tend to be European ones with a little different aesthetic. And sometimes that's just for inspiration, and then that gets me going on something just entirely different. My post today is very random, but it's, I kind of had this complete, I don't know if any of you do this, but you get really stressed out and you start cleaning out a closet, or you have to reorganize, and you'll do it at 11 o'clock at night. I did that with my pantry and bought a bunch of Bell jars, you know, the big glass jars. So I did this whole post on that, and I went through and Googled and found photographs and other ways to use glass jars as, you know, as storage. So I'm all over the place with it, and sometimes it just comes from my own personal day. And another great resource is Pinterest, which is relatively new. It's like a virtual image board. You can sign up, and people pin pictures that they like, that they found out there, and you can go through and search by tags, and sometimes you'll just start looking at these images and they start getting you going. You'll start thinking about color, and maybe you'll do a series on the color turquoise, or painted floors, or pendant lights. It really starts becoming endless. And if you're blogging, you're probably really obsessed with all of this sort of thing, and so it doesn't take a lot to get you to just become completely immersed in one concept, one design element in a space.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Erika? Do you get inspiration from your projects that you're working on?
Most of mine comes from my work, or just everyday life, things that are going on, if I'm traveling, or a new project. And I think original content is huge in blogging. I think people don't want to see a lot of regurgitated information that you've found someplace on another blog that's similar to yours. And having a voice, like Susan said, having a voice and a personality behind your blog, that's what keeps me reading the blogs that I keep reading. There's actually, you feel like you can relate to that person. So there's some blogs that just post images they've found from some magazine's website, and it gets old. You know, we've all seen it. But I found Pinterest this weekend, and I was so inspired. I set up an account on Friday night, and I pinned all weekend long like a mad woman. It's really inspiring. So I think there's, just everyday life really for me is where I find inspiration.
Yeah, great. Does anyone have any questions they want to ask anyone? You know, if you're thinking about starting your own blog from your business, keeping it social media. Yeah.
Hi, and this is for anyone. If you're creating your blog from your own personal experience or your businesses, do you find it difficult not to like relay personal information about your clients? How do you incorporate what you're doing without doing that? I
just don't ever mention the client. I'll mention the project and what's going on, and sometimes if it's a bigger project, I'll ask the client's permission, like, are you okay if I show photographs of your kitchen or your living room? But I just never mention where the project is. Usually I don't mention where it is or the client's name.
Or you do more more close-up, you know, little details of the project rather than the whole thing. Although I have a client right now who, it's a business that I'm working, it's a commercial space, and she can't wait. She wants the whole world to know because it's bringing her, it's great advertising for her, but I've run into that a lot where people are private. They don't really want their kids' rooms, you know, being seen by thousands of people. So you do just leave their name out, all of that.
We start to see the opposite. At Apartment Therapy, I think we start to see the opposite, where maybe a slightly older generation or a person 5 years ago would say, never show my face, never say my city. And now people sort of line up and beg us to post their houses, and they call up, and our receptionist gets these angry, I sent you, I worked on this for a year just to have it posted on your website. Why didn't you put it up? So I think maybe in the Facebook and Twitter world, people are a little more comfortable with putting their things out there. And I think it's one of our core parts of our mission is to celebrate these accomplishments with people. And they're so excited and work so hard. And we can help them share their stories. And I think we used to be really worried about, do people want their name on there, and make sure you don't use your name as your screen name. And now the internet is becoming as regular as your phone number or your mailing address in some ways.
Yeah, that's great. So any other questions? So why don't we just kind of wrap up with some future projects that you all are working on. Tim, I know you and your wife just started something fairly new. Why don't you tell everyone about that?
Yeah, it's brand new. There's no site up yet, but it's built by kids. And we're focused on, it's not a site for children to read, but for parents, educators, anybody who interacts with a child, and really to kind of go back to the core of getting hands-on and learning some real DIY skills, but at the same time that bonding experience, working with your family, your parents, your siblings. So there's going to be projects on there. There's going to be we're going to talk about different products that are available to help you go through these projects. So it's exciting. I think coming up the end of this next month, we'll have it all together. But yeah, and we'll also be looking for people to contribute, like Chris was saying, their own projects. A lot of times, obviously, with children, you're trying to build something that you might not find out there, but it works for your particular needs. So we want to share that as well.
Right, just trying to get your kids involved in maybe how you actually do that in terms of like building.
Exactly, and a lot of times you might not think because they can't use a power tool, they can still contribute in some way. They still want to work with you in some way. So if they can even, it comes from kind of our recollection of my wife building a dollhouse with her dad and me working on projects with my family. And really, it wasn't really so much the end result, it was really the process. So that's what we're trying to celebrate.
Great. Chris, what's coming up for you in Apartment Therapy?
Well, right now on Apartment Therapy, we're on a hunt for the smallest, coolest apartment, and it's our annual contest. And this year, it's been our biggest and best one ever. So if you go on Apartment Therapy now and click on the smallest, coolest link, you'll see all of our readers and friends who are vying to have their home named the smallest, coolest, and our readers get to vote on their favorites, and then eventually we'll be down to the final face-to-face challenge for the last few participants, and that's very exciting. And then in the fall, Apartment Therapy is going to show a new major redesign where we're going to have bigger pictures and an easier navigation. And we're looking at the final mock-ups now, and it'll be a very exciting sort of evolution from blogs used to look very one way with a lot of timestamps and confusing linear date-driven things, and we're going to show a sort of more elegant, beautiful way to blog in the fall. So we're working hard on that right now.
Great, that's exciting. Do you find most of your contestants are coming from New York because the apartments are smaller? Do you find like more urban living, or do you have all across the board apartments being submitted?
Yeah, we have 2 contests right now. We're doing Small Cool, and then in the fall we do a search for the most colorful, most beautiful home. So I think the colorful contest in the fall has a little bit more national, and people that live in larger homes. Everyone struggles with color and is excited to celebrate it when they finally get it right. Our Small Cool contest does a little bit more skew to the coast, but I think one thing we find is that everyone thinks a certain room or a certain part of their house is too small, and I live in 650 square feet, so I think everything is small, but even people in places 4 or 5 times that big still struggle with, they only wish their kitchen or their master bathroom were a little bit bigger. So I think the small theme ends up being very uniting.
Right. Very exciting. Susan, how about you?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited because I just finished having a designer revamp my whole blog, and I got a little ambitious. My daughter's joining me in my business, and I also added a few little portals. So we have about 5 journals on the blog, and one is actually related to cooking. I mean, it's a direct connection to kitchen design, and there are some other interesting portals. So I actually have a mini portal website/blog that's very exciting. It's really exciting.
And how is it having your daughter join you?
It's wonderful.
She'll also be blogging with you.
Yeah, I mean, the relationship goes from the normal bickering to the laughter and everything in between, so nothing is different.
Great. Erika, what about you?
We are toying with the idea of an online store. I purchased the domain Urban Grace Home a long time ago and just never had time to launch it. And from the blog, we sell a lot of product. People will see a sofa we used in a project and will order it from us. And we do a ton of business that way, but I thought this may be the year that we actually sell our favorite products in an online store. So we'll see.
Cool. I've seen hotels actually start to do that too in that realm, because you get people that come in and want to have the sheet count or the mattress. So great idea, yeah. Megan?
Well, I'm just going to keep changing Beach Bungalow 8. I'm thinking of starting to do a little vlogging, video blogging. Living in LA, I'm lucky enough to, my husband's in the business, and we have a lot of contacts, so I'm looking into pitching show ideas. And I brought it up with my 2 other cohorts on the Skirted Roundtable, and neither of them have any interest in that. So I'm working on them still, but
no reality TV show for them.
No, nor me. I would not go that route. But I would. So I'm coming up with some ideas to pitch to the various powers that be. See where that goes.
Great. Well, I'd like to, on behalf of everyone here, thank you for joining us for this panel. Thanks for sharing your expertise, your advice. I know we'll all be able to find you on your blogs, but also social media. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.